Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Matt Beausoleil. I'm a culinary advisor, cook, and TV personality from Ottawa, Gatineau, Canada. I've built my food business around food TV competitions and cooking in different kitchens across the country, as well as in-home dining and catering. 2 years ago, I created my first TV show entitled Takinabite Ottawa, which is available on Bell 5 TV1 across the country. And this show is a spin-off of that show. So Takinabite Meet The was created to introduce you to some of the movers and shakers of our industry here in Ottawa, Gatineau, Canada, and abroad. Meet the was to meet the person doing the job. So not meet the Chris Nuttall-Smith, but meet the food writer and critic, right? So we're trying to introduce you to some people that are movers and shakers in our industry that make a difference in all different aspects of the food scene. And currently we're in a current state of disarray, and our passion for food and beverage is clearly shaken. So that whole social aspect is gone.
Hey, my passion is not shaken, Matt. What are you talking about?
Okay, fine. It's not shaken. It's not shaken. It's stirred. So basically, the whole intention was to create this show to bring these people into your home and stimulate you with food content during this time. So during the show, I invite you to ask your questions down below. There's a question mark in a box. Please ask your questions in there, and we'll get to them in the Q&A at the end of the show.
Matt, I have a question.
You have a question? All right, don't ask it.
Do you have a solution for propping up my phone so I don't fall all the time? There we go. Okay. Sorry, go on.
Good. It's all good. It's all good. So tonight's guest is Chris Nuttall-Smith. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really happy to have you too. So Chris is a well-known food writer, critic, Top Chef Canada resident judge, and Iron Chef Canada floor reporter. If you watch the Food Network, I'm sure you've seen him around several times. Chris made his name as the dining critic for the Globe and Mail. A profile in The Guardian UK said of his weekly restaurant column, his influence, both positive and negative, is colossal. That is no small statement. Chris also served as food editor, chief restaurant critic, and dining columnist at Toronto Life, and host of and creator of the CBC podcast, The Fridge Light. He's won 4 national magazine awards, including one for his work in enRoute magazine's annual list of Canada's best new restaurants. And
I'm up for 2 more right now. Don't forget that. There's 2 more on the line.
2 more on the line. That's awesome. So Chris's writing about food and other subjects have also appeared in Lucky Peach, Esquire, Toronto Life, enRoute, the Wall Street Journal, and New York Magazine. So welcome, Chris, and let's hop right into some of the questions. So, you know, the whole purpose of the show is to kind of bring some positivity, tell the story first, and then obviously talk about the current situation. So tell me a bit about your background, growing up, and when you became interested in writing.
You know, my dad was a high school theater director and then an English teacher. And he always at the dinner table correct my grammar, and it drove me fucking crazy, absolutely mad. I just swore on Instagram. I think that's allowed. He drove me fucking crazy.
You just did it again.
But it was great. He was actually really helpful. I still, you know, whenever I hear someone say like, I don't know, me and Johnny went to the park, I can hear my dad saying, I, not me. He used to correct my
Johnny
essays,
and I.
whatever it was. He used to help me out, he used to correct my essays, and I used to read a lot. We lived in the country, and so, you know, I read through the Hardy Boys novels, and then I read other stuff, and I'd keep going. And I just started writing. I don't know, what else was I was kind of a little bit of a, I was about to say screw up. Yeah, I was a little bit of a screw up. But I really enjoyed writing, and I wasn't bad at it. And it stuck. And then, you know, in high school, I actually failed grade 12 the first time. So I went back to a different school.
Your dad should have corrected you more.
Yeah, exactly. You really should have. It was math. It was math 11, the worst 3 years of my life. But I joined the year, you know, there was like a yearbook class, and I took it and I started writing, and the teacher, who was just amazingly supportive, who was like, hey, you're actually good at this. And it started that way. And
that's great.
In the beginning of my career, I was a photographer and a writer. I was kind of doing both, and I was kind of a shitty photographer. So, not shitty. I just wasn't as good as good photographers. So, yeah, writing, it's like the thing I was least shitty at. Here I am.
That's good. There you go. Well, you know, there's always a path to success somewhere, right?
I'll let you know when I get there.
So actually, funny story is that I met Chris last year, not this past Restaurant Canada show, but in 2019 at the
That wasn't me.
Bocuse
That was
Dog
my twin
qualifier.
brother.
No, that was
wasn't
definitely
me.
you. You were hosting the Bocuse Dog qualifier. In case you forget,
No,
but
that was me.
yeah, no, that's when I met Chris. So, anyways, that's kind of where we started our relationship, and I'm glad you're here tonight. So, I guess what my next question is: at what point did food become a passion of yours? Enough so that you started to write and critique.
So, I have this uncle. I hope he's not watching.
First it was dad, now it's uncle.
Yeah, I had an uncle, my Uncle Ted. I really hope he's not watching. And I was probably 6. He lived in Montreal. He was far, far younger. He was like the baby brother of the family.
Right.
And we went and stayed with them. And he was, I didn't know this at the time. He was just he was like a pot smoking maniac who worked for Via Rail and cooked a lot. And I remember we went to his house when I was 7. I had no idea. I just knew he was cool. And he was making like a frittata or something ridiculous. And he took it out of the oven. And I thought, what are you doing? I'm like, why are you making this? And he was like, it's a great way to get girls. Which he actually said something far cruder than that, but it stuck with me. And
he's from Montreal.
I didn't understand it at the time, but my cool Uncle Ted did it, and apparently it had benefits. So anyway, I really enjoyed it. In high school, I started cooking a bit. And then in university, lo and behold, I discovered it was just a great way to meet people. I would, after a class, I'd say, hey, everybody come over. I'm going to cook something. And they would, and they'd all bring wine and beer, and they'd come into my tiny little shitty university apartment, and they'd have the greatest time, and everybody would hear about it. And I would do that several times a week. And my cooking was awful. Like, it was so bad. I remember making, like, pasta with like those jar Thai curries that you get, and putting in like zucchini and like the most awful stuff. But it was pretty delicious for university food.
Were you able to make your pasta al dente or?
Oh God, no. It was like
El Sapte.
It was like glue made from real horse bones. It was not good. Anyway, people liked it.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was good. So people enjoyed it, and then I started, I just kind of got more and more ambitious, and I would start, I would buy a cookbook. Lumiere, Rob Feeney, Iron Chef, amazing Canadian, iconic chef. I remember getting the Lumiere cookbook when I was in my early 20s, and cooking pretty much the whole thing, and just being absolutely blown away. I could not afford to go to these restaurants. Yeah. I didn't have the clothes to go to the restaurants. It was not something I did, but I could cook. And so I started buying cookbooks and cooking the whole thing. And I think a lot of people do that. I loved it. I got so much out of it, and I learned so much out of it. And anyway, became a journalist, always cooked in my spare time, and eventually those two things dovetailed.
So I guess one of the questions that I know people ask me that, right? They're like, how did you get the job that you do and work with restaurants as a culinary advisor? And they say, like, how did you?
Yes, how did you do that?
How did you well, let me ask you your question first, and then I'll answer mine. So how did you become a trusted critic? Like, how do you go from writing about food and learning about food to being a critic? That's a question that lots of people ask of, like, all critics, right?
It's probably the most common question you get as a restaurant critic is, how do you get this job? I came at it through journalism. I was a newspaper correspondent. I was in Afghanistan and Pakistan and in the Gulf states. Did all that. I wrote about politics for newspapers and loved it. Did well with it. But I was always cooking in my spare time. As I started, as my journalism career grew, I was traveling and eating and getting excited about it. Toronto Life, the food editor job came open, and I was looking for a change. I always thought I would review food at some time, not quite that early, but it came open, and I applied and had a great interview. They offered me the job, and when you step into that job, you're all of a sudden the boss of all these people who are reviewing restaurants, as well as the restaurant columnist for the magazine. So I figured I might as well know how to do this.
Right.
And I started, and I wasn't very good at first, but you learn. Being a critic is something, for good and for bad, that you learn on the job. You learn how to write, you learn how to judge, you learn how to be fair. You learn how to go into a restaurant and try to like it, which is, I think, one of the most important rules of being a restaurant critic is don't go in trying to hate a place. Go in trying to fall in love with a place. So, you know, and it really developed over time. I don't think a lot of people know or remember this because it's not like a noteworthy stint, but for one summer, every summer, Joanne Cates, the former critic at the Globe Mail, used to go away. She runs a summer camp. And so they'd hire fill-ins. And I had written a bit of food stuff for the Globe. I'd written news for the Globe and so on. And so one summer they said, hey, do you want to be the restaurant critic? And I was so bad. I ran. I was just like, I was so mean. The lines I wrote. Like, I actually wrote a line about a restaurant I said that the sauce tasted like post-nasal drip. It's the worst thing I've ever written. Like, so bad.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
I'm not proud of
your
that.
throat the whole meal.
I'm not proud of that. But anyway, so I did that, and I thought, well, I'm never writing for the Globe again. But then, you know, I went on for Toronto Life and became their columnist, and it worked out eventually. Eventually, they hired me, and it was a good run.
I think it all starts at writing, right? And that makes sense. Like, I studied in communications at university as well as IT, and I think writing was one of my things. I also wrote articles in newspapers, and I worked for a news company for 11 years when I was in Sudbury. So I think journalism kind of brings us into this writing about food and talking about food. So how did I get started? Basically, my whole thing started with food TV, right? So it actually started on Twitter. I was in Sudbury, Ontario. I had no real market for social media for food. There wasn't a lot of restaurants to cover. I was doing my own food. And actually, Gordon Ramsay followed me on Twitter and said, you should try out for MasterChef. And that's actually where this all started, because my Twitter was just feeds of my food, a feed of my food. And by getting that like vote of confidence, it kind of made me think, hey, I'm going to do this. So I did, you know, and I did 3 seasons of MasterChef. I was shortlisted for 3 seasons of MasterChef. And, you know, I had a great time. I met all the chefs, and I'm also a great networker, right? Meeting people, talking to people, telling your story, sharing your passion, but also being able to demonstrate your skill. So I've been invited to restaurants to go and cook stuff, and also talking about food knowledge. So I think learning all of that, and also growing up in food. As we traveled as a young kid, I traveled. I went into restaurants all over the world. I would always ask to meet the chef. I would learn. I would ask.
I think I need to take a class from you, man. I don't have any of that stuff. Networking, come on.
So that's the biggest part for me, right? So meeting the people and showing them that you know what you're talking about, and then also being able to demonstrate it in the kitchen. Not March, it just passed, but the March before, I cooked at the French Embassy with Ned Bell. So Ned invited me to cook, and I was sous chef, and we did a huge dinner for Good France. So all those different, you know, I call them milestones or stepping stones, demonstrate your abilities in the kitchen. So that's kind of where I grew as a reputable name and consultant.
Good for you.
That's my story. I'm sticking to it.
Excellent.
So you've written for some really great publications. What was the best piece do you think you got to write?
Oh, man. That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I've written so many different kinds of pieces. The one that's most famous is the review of America Restaurant in the Trump Tower, which I will never live down. I meet people, and the first, did you write that article? Which is funny because I hate writing. I find it really, really hard, and it's usually like tearing out my hair. I just wrote in like 20 minutes, and I was just giggling the whole time because it was just.
You should just get rid of your hair, then you won't have to tear it out.
Maybe that's the secret. It
is, yeah.
So that was a lot of fun to write, and I'm still proud of that piece. But there's lots of magazine pieces I've done that I really enjoyed doing. Often. I think a lot of writers have trouble looking back at what they've done. You know, they're always like, oh, shit, I would have done this way different.
It is so hard to read the stuff that you wrote in the past.
No, it's challenging. It's
always difficult because you read it, you're like, oh my God, like, why did I write it that way? Or why did I say it that way?
It's challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote reviews when I started doing my blog, and I was very fair. Like you said, you know what? Go in with a positive mind. And every time I would go to a restaurant, if something came out funky or awry, I would mention it to the server and see if they actually dealt with the issue, right? Because if a restaurant's able to deal with an issue, to me, that's very meaningful, right? If the restaurant's like, oh well, that's how it's going to be, well, then you're going to get a
You were
negative
that guy.
review.
You were that guy who was complaining in the corner.
No, it wasn't me. Not me at
I
all.
think that was you. I think that was you.
You know what? That's the other
I'm glad I
problem.
never ate with you.
It's super difficult when you know how to cook and you go to a restaurant because you become more critical. I think that becomes a challenge too, right? It's hard to just sit down and enjoy it.
There's the value proposition of going out to eat. And when you know how to cook, when you think you know how to cook, you look at what a restaurant's doing, you say, I could do this at home with better ingredients. It would cost a lot less, and maybe I'd be having a better time. Now, the joy of restaurants is most of the time if you get things right, that's not what happens. Most of the time it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I could cook something like this, but I'm so happy to be in this environment with people who are happy. That is the magic of restaurants. That's something that I miss so desperately right now. I miss the food. I miss the cooking. I miss the wine. But more than any of that, I miss being around happy people who are
100%. The experience, right? It's an experience. Yeah.
Loving where they're being. I love watching people eat and talk with their friends. I love watching couples out on first dates. Because they're on a Tinder date, they're going to go home and fuck. It's like, it's so good. So, like there's great stuff about being in restaurants that I'm dying for. I saw a restaurateur. I was out for a walk with my wife the other night, and he was walking by. He runs some great places, and I stopped and said hi, and we were talking, and it just looked like something had been torn out of him. Like, people who do it well are in it because they love it, and it is a part of who they are. And you can see it when you're in a place. You know it when you're in a place that's run by people who care that much. And to see people going through what they're going through right now, and sorry to bring this down because we were just talking about fucking, and now I'm talking about this. But really, to see what you're going through,
you're definitely a swipe right.
Yeah, it's tough to see. It's tough to see, and I mean the only bright spot right now is we seem to be coming, if not coming out of this, things seem to be slowly improving. But it's tough times out there. Yeah,
no, for sure. 100%. So I know you've had a chance to travel in your journalism job. Have you traveled a bit for food writing as well?
I have. I've traveled a lot for food writing. It's like all over the place. Yeah, it's been great.
What's your favorite destination? What's your craziest thing you discovered?
I did a story a few years ago in San Sebastian about the cider houses that I just thought was pretty magical. But I also I've done stories in Quebec City that have absolutely blown our mind as Canadians. Canadians and Torontonians as well. We have a bit of a complex that's great, and that's also a bit of a problem. Many people think, why would I eat my own city? I'm going to go somewhere great to eat. And we underestimate, we underrate where we live, we underrate what's available to us. And I think right now is a great time to think about that. We can't travel. We can't even go to our own restaurants. And it's interesting to realize how much we miss them. We have it so good here. So, San Sebastian, London, Paris, Toronto, Vancouver, Quebec City, Montreal is just, everybody knows this, but we need to say it. It's one of the greatest fucking food cities on the planet. People travel from around the world to go and eat there and to live here. We're lucky, and we have it good. And you never realize it more than when suddenly you can't go out.
Yeah, no, 100%. I feel kind of lucky because I live in Gatineau, so I'm about 2 hours from Montreal, 4 hours from Toronto. So I'm in a pretty good spot to dive into some food across the spectrum of some of the best restaurants.
Montreal for lunch and Toronto for dinner. Is that kind of what you generally do, or?
That seems like a pretty good haul. But normally I go to 4 or 5. It's very difficult. I find that when I travel, if I'm there for a few days, I'll get invited to go to 10 restaurants, right? So sometimes I'll just pop in for an espresso and a dessert if it's a cafe or whatnot, just to kind of get a vibe for it and share some social media, talk to the owners. But one of the things that I also do is always meet the chef and the owner, right? It's all about building that relationship with those people. They are the people behind the business, but they're also the soul behind the business. And like you said, you can tell when it's somebody that cares about their business. You can see that through them, but you can also see that through their staff. The passion is visible everywhere in a restaurant like that. And those kinds of of honey holes, I call them. I like to find those and I share those with everybody.
You called it a honey hole?
A honey hole. Just
a honey hole. Okay, that's not dirty, but good. Good for you.
Well, you know, it is what it is.
Sure.
So let's talk about food TV.
Yeah.
Top Chef Canada. It's currently airing.
Yes.
Sandy Spinach last week. Unfortunately, sent Alicia home.
I think I still have some in my teeth.
I think I might see. No, I don't see it there. Yeah. So, tell me a bit about that show. So, how long have you been a resident judge on that show?
What am I? I think I'm in my 4th season. Oh my God! Somebody correct me. I think I'm in my 4th season. You know what? It goes by so quickly. It's such. I don't call it a show, which is strange. And I always find it strange when people call it a show. It's a competition. It's the real thing. Even when you're in the middle of it, it's to see these chefs, typically young, not always, but typically young chefs, cook for their lives is such an exciting thing. It's funny. I have a really hard time watching myself on TV. I struggle with it.
I think that's common. Yeah, when I did my TV show, I didn't even want to watch it. I hate watching myself.
Yeah. So it's hard, but I do because it's a great show. And
we have to, but I don't like it either, though. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a great show to watch. It's not
a show, Chris. It's a competition.
See, I tell you, it's a great competition. It's an amazing thing to be a part of, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. It's incredible to watch these chefs cook such amazing food with amazing ingredients and care as much as they do.
Yeah, I think it's. I love the show. I've always watched the show. I think that it's, and I actually have met and known lots of the chefs that have been on the show and how real it is, right? And lots of people always question how real these shows are, and that one is definitely 100% real. And it's crazy.
I think there's an assumption in food television, if it's on TV, it must be fake. And,
I know.
When I went in, I'll never forget my first season, the first year I was involved with the competition, having no idea what to expect. And, thinking, oh my God, I have to play a character and so on. I remember one of the producers saying, no, don't play characters.
Be yourself. Yeah.
We want you to be who you are, and this competition is going to happen the way it happens. And if something is screwed up, it's screwed up. We're not going to stop. We're not going to fix it. We're not going to change things. The number of times that a producer has told me what to say is 0.
That's awesome.
It's an incredible thing. Coming from a journalism background where, you like in newspapers, you write what you want to write. Very rare to have that change. I didn't know what to expect. And I was so impressed, and I'm so excited to be a part of a competition that is run as well as it is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's kind of flip that now to Iron Chef. So Iron Chef is a totally different show. You're the floor reporter, which is an awesome job, I think.
It's a good time. Is it a job? It's great.
It sounds super interesting. So from a competition standpoint, obviously it pins one chef versus the Iron Chef, which is great. What is the best part for you in that competition?
Oh my God, I'm in the middle of it. It's the best part for me. Look, as a magazine writer, I spent a lot of time in kitchens with chefs, following them, seeing what they do, and it's intense. Now, when you're having sometimes those same chefs with 45 minutes to cook an incredible meal against the clock in difficult circumstances, in a kitchen that is 40 degrees sometimes. It is so exciting to be there. And you see, these are incredible chefs and incredible creative minds. And to see them work on the fly, to see them deal with all sorts of issues, fuck ups, like stuff happens, and they're pros. And so you come out of that competition with so much energy. I absolutely love it. It's one of the most fun things I've ever done.
Yeah, it certainly drives you, right? I think that food cooking competitions, the show I did in Montreal was just stellar, right? And I won as the home cook, and then my final competition was to go against Martin Junot, who owns Pastaga and a couple restaurants in Montreal. So we went head to head, and we had been filming since 6 a.m, and it was now.
Who had the bigger head?
What? Oh, me.
Who had the bigger head? Him?
Yeah, I have the bigger head. I always win that battle. This one, though. All right. That was for you. So, just so you know, Krista Look just said, hey, she's here for you, Chris Nuttall-Smith. Krista was on my show, or joined my show last night with Janet, or on Tuesday. So
you guys are like best buds.
In case you missed it, Krista says hi. I just wanted to know that. So, cool.
That changes everything.
You just changed my whole subject, though. Now I'm lost. But basically, I started filming at 6 in the morning, and then we were competing at midnight, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. I'm going against a professional chef at midnight. The competition was brunch, and he has a brunch restaurant. And I was like, oh, my God, what the hell am I going to do? I can't even feel my face. And I was so numb.
You didn't stand a chance.
This has been a long day.
Yeah.
And you know what? I screwed up one technicality, and it was super unfortunate because the judge ate the
That's all you did. So, hold on. I need to get this straight. You were against a professional chef, and you would have won, except you screwed up one thing.
Yeah.
You would have beat one of the best chefs in Montreal.
Yeah. You can watch the show.
I didn't watch that show. I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it.
No, you can. You can.
I didn't watch it.
And you know what? Well, actually, one of the judges from Iron Chef, Marie-Claude Darty, was the judge.
Hold on. I got to interrupt you again. Hi, Niall. Hi, Amanda.
Yeah, that's good. Welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, tell me more. Tell me more.
Well, ultimately, I made a caramel sauce. By the time she ate it, was about 20 minutes after, and then when she chewed it, it kind of got stuck in her teeth, and that's why I lost. She even said the flavor was awesome. So basically, in the end, she told me and Martin, she said, basically, if his caramel would have been crunchy and not stuck in my teeth, he would have won.
What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Interviewing people on TV. You should be. Why aren't you running a restaurant? Why aren't you putting these professional chefs out of business?
I'm not there to compete with these people. I'm there to support these people. And you know what? Let's be fair, right? In our current state of the industry, I'm kind of in a great position because I don't have that investment, and I count myself lucky. And that's why I'm also doing this show, is to kind of help shed light on the industry. I would love to be in a restaurant. Who knows? Maybe one day. We'll have to see how that plays out.
So I'm reading the comments, and Niall thinks I'm handsome. Niall, you are handsome, pal. Well, I will have a handsome off with you any day.
Who's Niall?
Okay, what were we talking about? We were talking about meat.
Yeah, well, we were, but you asked okay, whatever. You know what? Anyways, so before we hop into the negative stuff, I just wanted to remind you that we have a Q&A later on in the show, so please ask your questions in the comment area down below where there's a question mark in a box, and then we'll get to those questions later on. So now we're going to kind of hop into the current state of the industry. 10% of Canada's 98,000 restaurants likely going to close.
It's not 10%. It's not 10%. It's 10% at any point in regular times. 10% of Canada's restaurants are going to close. It is way more than 10%. Everybody even thinks it's 10% kidding themselves. It's 30, 40%.
Well, that's where I was going. So that's kind of the stat that came out at the beginning, right? 10% will close. How long this is going to last, we don't know. Now they're estimating 30%, right? They're saying that within the next couple of months, if restaurants don't open, or even, there's talks about opening at 30% capacity. Well, you still need staff, and you have to have, if you're used to having 100 covers, and now you have 30, how the hell do you make ends meet? And it's a real concern. And I was talking to some restaurateurs here in Ottawa, and they're telling me, they're like, we're better off with the government subsidy for rent than to open at 30% capacity, because we won't even be able to make money to pay our rent. And it's the harsh reality. So, I mean, you're reading Niall's comments again.
I'm reading Niall's comment. I'm sorry. I'm not laughing at the situation because there's nothing to laugh at there. Sure.
Well, I thought you were laughing at me, but that's okay.
I would never.
I'm just bugging you. So, but the reality is that 800,000 employees are out of work right across the country, and that's crazy. And some of these people are not eligible for EI. Some of them can get CERB. Some of them didn't make money last year. We have all different age groups of people that are in our restaurants. So I guess I kind of wanted to get your humble opinion on the current state of the industry.
It's brutal. It's heartbreaking. I mean, the reporting I've done, the chefs I've talked to, whether for work, the restaurateurs, the servers, the bartenders, the people I see on the street, there is, I don't know how else to put it, there's just a hollowness there. I was saying earlier, so many people in the industry, we think people do it because they want to make money. We think people do it because they want to make tips. We think people do it because, they don't know what else to do. The people who do it well do it because that's what they love.
That's
And
right.
that's what they know. And that's what gives them a sense of purpose and pride and happiness for whatever reason. And they don't have that right now. And so many of them don't know when, if ever, they're going to be able to get that back. I mean, there are people watching this right now. I see names who have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars invested at risk, on restaurant projects, who have kids at home, who have bills to pay,
Yeah,
who
they're all
are
real people.
incredible, who are incredible at their jobs. The situation is brutal. And, for every, person you meet, there's 100,000. There's 200,000 like them, who are going through similar things. I don't see in the programs that the provincial and federal government have announced a whole lot of help. There's been a lot about the rent subsidy. Unfortunately, landlords need to apply for it, and in many cases, they're not. In some cases, they want to get rid of their tenant, and so it's convenient. In other cases, they just don't understand the program because it's not made to be understandable. It's interesting. Through this, I've really tried not to shit on the policymakers because I legitimately believe they're trying their best. They are trying. Everybody's trying to figure out what's happening and to fix it, but it's not working. And so it's terrifying to me to think of what not just my city, but cities, in rural areas across Canada are going to look like for food and drink, for restaurants, for bars, for caterers who are struggling in a month, in 2 months, whenever this either ends or gets back to business. There are some restaurants that are just barely treading water by doing takeout. There's a few restaurants that are doing very well with takeout, by the way. That is happening. But for so many businesses, that's just not the solution. It just barely covers some bills and allows them to keep a few people employed. There are so many people at home right now. I had a restaurateur say to me, the drinking and the psychological issues are huge behind the scenes. And there is going to be, sorry, I'm getting totally bleak here, but you asked what's happening out there.
It's the truth.
There are huge issues that are going to come out of this that are going to last. And I think as diners in particular, we're all diners, we need to do whatever we can to support these businesses. For the first few weeks of this, I thought, I'm not going to do takeout. I'm not comfortable with it. It's now, takeout. Support these businesses, and especially when they start to open again, we need to support them with our dollars. We need to support them with our voices as well. Restaurateurs, chefs, bartenders, people who work in the industry don't actually have a lobby. The big McDonald's has a lobby. Tim Hortons has a lobby.
Right. Yeah.
The little guys, the women who are running the smaller independent places don't have a lobby, and they're trying. They're doing their best, but they need our voices. And I think that's such a big part of what people can do besides just going and enjoying and spending money and tipping well and supporting places is speak up. Talk to city councilors, talk to MPPs, talk to MPs, write letters, send emails. If you're in journalism, write about it on social media, get after people, because big industries are going to take care of themselves. The big players are going to take care of themselves. It's the little places that give character to the industry that we're a part of on the fringes that we write about. It's the little players that give so much character to cities, to neighborhoods, that make places worth living and exciting to live in, who are suffering and need our help.
I think it's important to note that that whole support local movement that we've always talked about, and this kind of is creating that sense of, and we're seeing it all over, right? We need to support our local restaurants, and we're seeing that sharing, people are sharing that more and more, right? They're like, okay, let's go and eat. What are we going to order for takeout? Well, what are we going to order for takeout? We're going to order something from a local restaurant, and I'm hoping that coming out of this, that whole trend You know, they say it takes 21 days to make a habit. Hopefully that habit becomes that we're supporting our local restaurants. And I mean, our local restaurants are exactly that. It's the mom and pop shops that are creating that culture, that vibe. If you go downtown Ottawa, some of the best restaurants are owned by local people. They have families. Those are the people that are shaping the food scene here in Ottawa. You know, it's
I would
not
say
the
that
milestoners.
most of the good restaurants in any city are owned by locals. Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, there's two things I see on the screen there that are
Yeah,
super vital.
yeah,
Savehospitalityca is an industry group. It's run by independent and mid-sized restaurants that
yeah.
are doing the best, that are lobbying. Check that out. That's so big. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No,
Those
I was going
locals.
there anyways. It's in my notes because I've been working and talking with them a lot. Savehospitality.ca and onetable, that are working hand in hand to help our industry.
You know, the other thing that's I am hopeful that diners. I don't know. Maybe I'm naive. I'm hopeful that diners are getting that, you know, when you order from a huge delivery app that's based in Silicon Valley, the restaurants are actually kind of getting fucked. I mean, it's working out just barely for them, but they're paying 30% off the top. This is another thing. There are systemic things in the business that restaurants have been talking about for a long time and diners just
Yeah,
haven't really cared about. And they matter now. If you like eating, you know, from these mom and pops, as you put it, from your local businesses, you got to think about where their money's coming from, what's coming off the top. I mean, margins are tiny when they're paying 30%. Um,
oh
you
yeah,
know,
no,
who's winning there? The restaurants aren't. So these are, I mean, that's a negative, but it's also something that I think more and more people are thinking about. I think people are valuing restaurants and
yeah,
realizing, look, I work in the business. I write about restaurants. Restaurants are a huge part of my livelihood.
hmm,
I started taking restaurants for granted. I did. I just did. They're here. They're doing well. You know, if some of them fail, others are going to come along. It's fascinating when you don't have them, to
isn't it
realize all
crazy?
of a
It
sudden.
is crazy.
To realize all of a sudden, God, like, why did I ever take this for granted? Why did I ever take these places for granted? And how hard they're working and how much it means to them. And we all have a role to play there. It's, you know, the choices we make and the places we go to.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, those movements in Canada, savehospitality.ca, onetable. I know they're working together on this. Um, So, you know, we kind of hit on this already. So the best way for people to help support their local restaurants, you know, ordering takeout, ordering directly from the restaurant. You know, it's just a quick call to the restaurant. They'll be more than happy to help you. I think it's the best way to give your money directly to them. Um,
Amanda Bradley, are you giving me the middle finger there? I can't read your emoji. I think that's the fuck
no,
you symbol. You
no,
better not,
she's
Amanda.
she's pointing up at me as one of
Okay,
those
fine.
30
Okay.
points for marketing and relevancy.
I think she's still giving me the middle finger.
She might be. I mean, it's been very PG-13, but you know, there has been a couple slip-ups.
I did say fuck a few times.
Just a few, and that's four now. I'm counting. I've got a little scorecard, and I'm just.
You're into the FAAs or the F whatever it is. They're coming after you.
Yeah, she's pointing at his comment. That's exactly it. That's what I was saying.
I see that. Okay.
All right. So, I guess, is there anything else you'd like to add? Or, oh, I guess I'm just going to reiterate, you know, speak to your local politicians. That's one of the things I've been saying since this show started, right? Talk to the people that can make a difference at your government levels, whether it be municipal, provincial, or federal. You know,
They
there
need to
needs to be
hear.
some help.
They
Yeah.
need to hear. They have to hear it. Look, I mean, I don't think anybody is trying on purpose to shut out restaurants. I don't see that
No,
happening. You know
no,
what?
it's not.
They need to hear. They need to hear, and it's not just the leaders at the top. It's your MPP.
That's
It's
right.
your MP. They are going to pass the message up the line. If enough people make phone calls, send emails, write letters to the editor, go on social media, however you connect. Um, you
But and
know,
it is us. It's not just the restaurateurs. It's everybody. We need
exactly,
everybody to speak up. It
exactly.
needs to be quantity, right?
100%. 100%. I think it's actually more important that people outside the industry speak up. Look, Tim
Exactly.
Hortons and McDonald's and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and nothing against those companies, but they are going to do just fine. They have people making a lot of money to talk for them. The
Yeah.
smaller restaurants don't. And that's what we can do as diners, as people who appreciate and love these places, is we can make those phone calls to people.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part. All right, so let's kind of hop into the quick and A. Quick and A.
I love me a good quick and A.
Let's hop into the quick and A.
Yeah.
The Q and A.
Yeah.
Of course, the Q and A is not going to work. Oh, there it is. All right.
I'm not doing a Q and A. I'll make it only a quick and A.
Well, that sounds
All
dirty
right.
too. I don't know. This show's starting to sound a little bit dirty tonight. Chris, what do you aspire to do or be next?
A unicorn. A unicorn. I don't know. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Yeah,
it's a good question.
You know what? I love what I do.
A good answer.
Love,
that's what I meant.
They're both good. Whatever. I love being a part of this. You know what I aspire to be and do next? I aspire to be a guy who eats in restaurants. That's really like my dream right now is to be the person who goes into a restaurant and has a great dinner and drinks. I was going to say a good bottle. I know who drinks many good bottles of wine and maybe a cocktail and looks around and sees that the world is all right. And I do think it's happening. I do think it's coming. Yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah. I think that's the most important thing is that we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel now. And I think that's important. And totally, I just cannot wait to be in a restaurant and just have that environment back, right? That real feeling that, and you're right, we totally became accustomed to it being normal. I mean, I'm in restaurants 3 to 4 nights a week. And like,
I'm taking you to get a beer while you talk. Keep going.
That's good. That's totally good. But it's true, right? We're all used to, especially, well, you and I, we're in restaurants. I'm in restaurants 3 to 4 nights a week. And like that, taking that away from me, I realized how precious that was. That whole experience is something that we really count on and we experience and love. We need to cherish that when it comes back. Now we should play a game of what's in Chris's fridge.
No. You know what? I have some beautiful ham. I'm going to show you. Can you see that?
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
I have like beautiful Spanish ham, and I have Schneider's juicy jumbos. Take your pick.
There you
ham, jumbos. Ham, jumbos. Hi, I'm back. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, God. So many jokes to be made about that fridge segment. But anyways. So there is another interesting question. Somebody asked what kind of beer are you drinking? I saw it was Mill Street.
No, you know what? I was, but I'm all out. I'm drinking such a horrible beer right now. It's
share.
But you know what? It's shit. I got to make sure it's not Canadian. It's where is it from? Scotland. No, okay, this is awful. I'm actually going to show you because it's so bad. And it's my brother-in-law, who I love. He's great, Jeff. He's in Vermont. He was one of the original members of Fish, by the way. He was the bassist. I love him. He gives me beer for Christmas. And he gave me a bunch of good beer. And he gave me an absolute, like, dog. And it is Scots Pine Ale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not good. Not good. So I'm going to drink it. And it's gonna make me funny.
Here we go. Well, you haven't been funny yet, so maybe that's a good thing.
If I drink Scots Pine beer, like give me 2 minutes, and I'm going to be in a kilt with no underwear. It's happening.
Oh my God! So back to the quick and A.
Okay, sure.
So how will COVID-19 affect the production of TV shows such as Top Chef, Iron Chef, in the future?
I think you got to ask them. It's really hard. I know in the TV business right now, there's nothing happening. I don't know. You know, the nice thing, I'm trying to look for silver linings. This beer is awful, by the way. It's fucking disgusting. It is like licking sap from the trunk of a tree.
That sounds amazing.
Look, people are looking for community right now. And people are looking to experience things. And of course, we're used to going out. We're used to going to restaurants. People are finding community. Look, Top Chef, people are watching it. People are getting so behind it. People are getting so excited about these people, these characters who are fighting for something that's hugely important to them. So what's going to happen to TV? I think so many people are paying attention and watching, and I think that's only going to continue. It's going to be hard. I see a comment, don't drink it, don't do it. It is awful. I think it's going to be hard, but look, the people who run these competitions are incredibly smart. They're good at solving problems. It's what they do. They're going to do it. So I think, God, there are so many people who are in this business, who do everything from catering the competitions to, the lighting. How do you put lighting right now, by the way? This is why we have lighting people, so people don't look like this. To people who run the cameras and the booms and the sound, and they are out of work right now, and that will change. That will change. But really in terms of specifics, I think I don't know. Ask the fancy people.
I think the stations at Top Chef Canada are more than 6 feet apart, so I think the competitions in the kitchen will be good to go.
There you go.
But you know what? The film industry is kind of spiking up here in Ottawa. I saw that they were filming a movie just yesterday.
They call it Hollywood Northeast, I heard.
O-Town. And then we take a ride on the O train.
Sure. I'm just kidding. Sorry, I got to pause and take a sip of my pine beer.
Go ahead. We're actually going to watch you enjoy this drink.
Not enjoying, I'm tolerating.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. So I think one of the interesting questions I get every show on my Q&A is, tell me something that you love to eat. What is your favorite food, and what is the food you like the least?
Okay, the least is easy. And that's a question that I've got a few times, because the restaurant critic was like, you don't like everything, do you? I really don't. I hate frogs' legs. They make me vom. But I do eat them. And not only do I eat them, but if they're good, I will appreciate them just before I vom. Because that's part of your job. What do I love? That's actually the hard question, because I love whatever is made with love and care and skill that I happen to be eating. God, I can get super excited about the thing that I cook a lot right now is farinata. It's beautiful chickpea flour. God, even the flour, you stick your nose in the bag of flour and it just smells incredible. It's chickpea flour, water, salt, olive oil, rosemary. That's it. And you do it in a crazy hot pan with shit tons of olive oil, like quarter cup of olive oil. Yeah. And then you throw it in the oven for 22 minutes. It comes out as lacy and creamy and crunchy and delicious. But God, like every day it changes. I have a food problem.
I think, well, yeah. Anyways, I think we both have that problem. But so that's the food you like the most, like least. All right. It's interesting. Farinata. Not most people came up with something like very typical, right? But I like that.
No, farinata is weird. Like it's a weird choice. And you say farinata to people, you actually have to explain what it is. I get it. Like it's fucked up. Like, who is this guy who likes like a chickpea pancake? That's messed up, Matt. Honestly, but it's fucking delicious. It's really good.
Five times. Fuck.
Keep counting. So. We were in Italy we were just outside Genoa, somewhere around there, and we're walking because that's what we do when you travel. We just came across this gigantic street fair, and it was a huge oven, and they were pulling out sheet trays of farinata, and God, it's when you eat when you're traveling and the experience. I mean, part of it is context. Obviously, the food tastes so good, but it's just something about the ingredients they're using. I mean, the olive oil was different. Yeah. It's anyway. So since then, it's a food that it's comfort food to me. I think I could talk about. Can you just make this the farinata show, and let's like take another hour, and I will talk about.
We'll do a farinata special on Sunday.
I want to. Yeah, great.
I think the important thing that you said, and it's one of the things that whenever I critique food, is exactly that. We will taste it, and even if we don't like that food, we look at how it was prepared, how well it's prepared, the care that was put into it. That makes a big difference, right? It makes a huge difference.
It's huge. And, it's massive.
Yeah, even if we don't like it, we still appreciate the work that went into it, right?
For me, look, this is one of the things I love about restaurants, and this is one of the things I struggle with takeout is the food may be great, and if you have a connection with the restaurateur, you understand what went into it. But there is something about being in a place, like for me, an open kitchen.
Oh yeah,
is a wonderful thing. You get to see here. I see Nama Cotter had a bag of crisps in NAD outside of Cork that made my, what is NAD? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, pal? NAD. Okay, I ate some crisps in NAD too. Anyway, you know, to see the work and the love that goes into this food, and I keep saying this over and over, it's so fundamental, it's so central, it makes a difference.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, that marks the end of the show. So I wanted to thank you for joining me. It was probably the funnest show that I've done. This is my 14th episode since I started. It was the most R-rated show, but that's great. Because it should be normal and it should be natural. And you know what? Like they said to you on not that show, but that competition of Top Chef, is that you need to be yourself. And I think that's important because being yourself is who we are. So anyways, thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciated it. And hopefully we can grab a couple bottles of wine and some food next time I'm in Toronto.
Delightful. Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. So to all of you, thank you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, bye, gang.
Join me next week. Two other amazing guests, another resident judge from Top Chef Canada, international food personality, and creator of Follow Me Foodie. I'm sure you know who that is, right, Chris? Mid-June Pack will be joining me on Tuesday, May 12th. And then on Thursday, May 14th.
Solid gold. Love her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Get her to swear. Get her to swear. Get her to swear.
Okay, but you better tune in. If you tune in to my show, I will get her to swear.
There you go.
I'll have to talk to her before we go live. But on Thursday, May 14th, this is going to be a kind of a different show. I'll be joined by Dylan Schur. He's the creative mind and producer behind the documentary Before the Plate. So we're going to discuss from the perspective of the farmers, how this crisis has impacted our industry, and talk about where our food comes from and the whole state of the industry from the farmer standpoint, which is going to be quite interesting, I think. So in closing,
yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be one of the most informative shows because we often hear the headlines about what's going on in our farms, what's going on behind the scenes, but we don't really know. And Dylan, reached out to me and said he'd really like to share that story, and I think it's an absolutely great story that we need to hear. So in closing, stay home, stay safe, and remember, we're all in this together. Cheers.